Hello, everybody. This is Jake Stenziano, host of the Wheelbarrow Profits Podcast, here with my co-host, the Multifamily Mentor, the coach, the chef, the father of six, the best-selling author, the G-Dad, Gino Barbaro. Gino, how's it going?
Stenziano, how we doing?
Always making it happen, big man. Today's guest is Mark Walker. Mark is the founder of Lux Mana Investments, which focuses on residential and multifamily investments. Mark was able to go from being a part-time investor with a full-time job in high tech to someone who quit the corporate rat race in pursuit of his passion and now thrives as a multifamily investor. Loving it. So without further ado, Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. I'm thrilled to be here.
Really pumped to have you. First time we've had, maybe the second time, a high-tech guy. Why don't you talk about what high-tech was like and then that transition that you made to multifamily investing?
Yeah, sure. Boy, I started with a company called Seagate Technology in 2001. So they manufacture and market disk drives, which went into computers, servers, consumer devices like your TiVo boxes and things like that. Real big company. And, I started out in a very traditional marketing role with Seagate, and eventually, went on to, be part of the sales and marketing and sales operation organizations throughout my career. Had a great career there, loved the people I worked with. And hey, I made a pretty good W-2 income as well. So when I was investing in real estate on the side, it certainly helped having that nice W-2 income as well. So, but yeah, I spent about 14 years at Seagate. And then what had happened is, like I said, I'd been, building my passive income on the side part-time. And I finally got to a point where I was able to escape the rat race. Had enough passive income. I was able to say goodbye to the corporate gig and focus 100% on my real estate investments. So it's been an exciting time for sure.
So my first question is, why real estate? Did you not like the corporate job? Did you not like the rat race? Did you like the passive income? Can you give me a full picture of why? Because that's the most important thing investors need to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll tell you, it started for me probably back in 2003. I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure, 80% of the guys that come on your show too probably say that's the book that started it for them, So, we all have that in common. I think a lot of us do. And that's what really turned me on, not only to real estate, but it also rekindled a fire that I had inside myself about being an entrepreneur. And so real estate, of course, is a fantastic vehicle, for being an entrepreneur. There's lots of tax benefits, especially if you are a investor for cash flow. And that was what it was about for me, because I wanted to be free. It's not that I didn't enjoy my job, especially back then. I really enjoyed my career. I loved the people I worked with, but I wanted to be free. I wanted to be able to do the things that I wanted to when I wanted to. And real estate, just checked all the boxes, in terms of, achieving that the fastest.
Why don't you take us back to that first deal and how you got hooked on to real estate?
Sure. So in 2004, I bought a duplex in South Denver. And it was exciting because that deal had a 36.5% cash on cash return in the first year. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Absolutely. It was a little easier back then because you could get like interest only, loans on a residential property back then. So, that's more difficult to do now. But that certainly helped with, that really awesome return. But when I suddenly, knocked the first one out of the ballpark, I was hooked. I wanted to do more. But that's not what happened. I ended up selling that property about a year or two later. Didn't lose money on it or anything. I was actually going to 1031 into something else. For lots of different reasons, I ended up just sitting out the next few years. And that turned out to be probably a blessing in disguise, because when our big crash happened, I wasn't in anything. But looking back on that time too, it would have been different if I'd known then what I know today. I might not have actually sat out the next few years, because I do believe in any market there's deals to be found. and you just have to look at each one individually. But anyway, that was my first deal, and then I got engaged again in about 2010 is when I started networking, and I got plugged in with a general contractor that had some experience doing some scrapes. He would buy single-family homes, scrape them down to the ground, and he would replace those with three-story duplexes. And so we partnered together, and we did this twice in a real trendy part of Denver. And that was 2010, getting into 2011, I started having money come out, capital come out of that first one that we did. And that's when I said to myself, okay, I got to get focused again on cash flow. I want to have passive investments. And so I started buying rental properties in the Denver market.
Why did you decide to shift your focus?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to describe maybe even the differences today between me and that general contractor, because we still keep in contact. We're still very close friends. He makes a lot of cash. He has a lot of cash that comes out of doing some of these development deals. But I think it goes back to something that Robert Kiyosaki once said. It's not how much money you get to a point where it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep.
No, Gino's dad said that.
Oh, is that Gino's dad?
Pizza guy, yeah. It's a pizza guy. Simple guy, and it resonates with everybody.
And he's older than Kiyosaki, so I know it came from him first.
Kiyosaki stole it, man. That's awesome. By the way, I love pizza, by the way, guys.
Oh, dude. Yeah, that's why I'm out. I love it, too. I said, I can't be eating it anymore. You know what I mean? You get to a certain age where you stop eating and you're still gaining weight. I'm like, bro, I got to get out. So that's my reason.
All right, reel it in. Here we go.
Yeah, no, so I love it, but it's so true, guys, because you get to a point where it's more about how much money you keep, because he makes huge amounts of money on these developments deal, but he loses a huge chunk of it to taxes, and when it comes to cash flow or passive investments like I do, I don't have those same problems he does. I get monthly, mailbox money, that comes to me. And if I do decide to sell one of my properties, I can just 1031 exchange it into something else. But the truth is, I mostly buy and hold, for long times. I don't sell much stuff. So that's really the big thing. Why I wanted to get back into that passive stuff was, I wanted to think long term about, not only how much I was making, but how much I was going to be able to keep.
So, Mark, we have a lot of investors, a lot of students who are, I guess, fit in your mold, your persona, where they're making good income and they want to get out. Can you tell them or give them a really short framework of how you did it, or how they should start pursuing it to get out of that rat race and to get into multifamily?
Yeah. I guess with specific emphasis on multifamily, I'd say that there's three building blocks that you need to keep in mind if you want to make the transition, whether it be from just doing residential stuff to doing multifamily, or whether or not you literally want to escape the rat race and then start doing multifamily. Those three building blocks align with what a lender is going to want to see from you. For if you want to be a successful multifamily investor, it's your net worth, it's your liquidity, and it's your experience. Now, notice that there's two things in there that are financial related: net worth and liquidity. Those have nothing to do with your income or your P&L. That has everything to do with your balance sheet. Okay, so when you break into multifamily, the lender is going to really look at three things about you and want to see three things from you. They want to see you have a net worth equal to or greater than the loan amount. And this is a generalization, right, guys? I mean, you guys have done this. This isn't always 100% accurate, but these are good generalizations. The second thing is they want to see that you have at least enough cash after closing to make 12 mortgage payments, assuming that the property's income is zero. And then thirdly, they want to see a solid track record of success because they're not going to go off and loan, 80% of the money to go buy a property and maybe even renovate it to someone that doesn't know what they're doing, hasn't demonstrated consistently that they know what they're doing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you keep those three building blocks in mind as you consider making that transition, that's going to be really, really important. So, and then on the side of that too, specifically around escaping the rat race, um, for me, it was about what kind of lifestyle did I want to live, and, my wife and I, we live a great lifestyle. We live well. We don't live what I'd call crazy by any means.
How many Lambos you got?
I don't have a Lambo. Okay.
Come on, man.
I don't have a Lambo. I don't drive a Tesla either, but, I know people that do, drive both of those, but, you know, um, we like this year, for example, we took a week long, trip to Disney World as a family. My wife went to Paris for 10 days in October. I'm going to Whistler next month to ski, for a few days and stuff like that. So, we live well, but we don't live crazy, right? And so for me, as I was looking to escape, people ask me all the time, well, how did you know when you had enough passive income to escape? I very simply said, this is the life I want to live. And I made enough passive income that was 2x that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, here's how much that lifestyle cost me. And I went off and do 2x that per month.
Mm-hmm.
I got a quick one because I think it's really important. On your three building blocks, you're talking about experience and a track record of success. How do you personally and specifically demonstrate that to a lender? What do you use to do that?
Yeah, well, a lender's gonna want to see your schedule of real estate, see what deals you've owned. They're gonna want to know at a high level, what the net operating income of those types of properties are, to see you're not losing money, every month. They're gonna want to, I mean, in some cases, I've actually even provided case studies to lenders to say, here's last deal or two that I've done and I've exited successfully, or I still own these properties and they produce X amount of cash flow. It's stuff like that, but also specifically with Fannie Mae. Now Fannie Mae is an agency lender, obviously, and when you get into larger multifamily stuff, agency debt's really attractive. Fannie Mae really sees your experience in three different tiers. Tier 1 is 5 to 50 units. Tier 2 is 51 units to 100 units. And Tier 3 is 101 units or more. If you're in Tier 3, you can do 1,000 unit property and they'd see it all the same. But usually what they'll do is they'll let you jump from one tier at a time. And they like to see you be seasoned ideally about 2 years in each tier before they let you jump. So for me, my first multifamily deal was in late 2013. I bought a 12-unit apartment in Denver. And, I owned that for a year and a half. That put me securely in tier 1. Ideally, they'd really like 2 years of seasoning, but I owned that property and it was like a knock out of the ballpark, a type scenario. So
what was the total debt on that one? Do you remember?
On that one, oh man, that was a 12-unit. Total acquisition price was $490,000 on that thing, and the debt was 75%.
No, that's cool. I was just wondering, how, because a lot of people are like, I don't want something that small. They don't want to necessarily take it to Fannie, or does Fannie really want it? That comes up a lot of times, So.
And that's important to say. That was not a Fannie deal.
Gotcha.
That one I had a private bank debt on.
Gotcha.
But that was really a very important transitional or pivotal moment.
Yes.
Yes. No, but it got you in the game more so and got that experience, and you're able to demonstrate that success. It's all very important lead up for sure.
And Jake, what I want to say about that is also the first deal is crucial, but it's also, guys, think outside the box. If you can't do it yourself, do what Jake and I did. partner up with somebody. There's no excuse for you not to do it, because now me and Jake have two balance sheets. We tackled our first 25 unit deal. I don't know how we got it. We got owner financing on it. We got a bank to actually take us. I mean, our net worth was okay. It was pretty good. The deal, the property itself is what they were looking at, but also our partnership, our ability to guarantee the loan 50% each. So there's less risk involved, two balance sheets going in. And also partnerships are stronger. He has one specific skill set and I have another. It's complementary. And also when you have a partner, you got problems. There's two heads thinking about it instead of one. So there's no excuse for you not to get into your first deal. Look at partnerships, because I think partnerships are awesome. I think they work for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, and a side note too, a lot of this stuff that we just talked about, the track record, you can bundle it up into an investment book that you can just recycle to the banks over and over again. Because we actually have one with our case studies in it, and that's why I was wondering if you kind of did the same thing. You can put your schedule in it and everything, and then just send it off. So every time you're just ready to go, one click, boom, send it out. So,
We're going to have that in our show notes. We're going to have the credibility book in our show notes just to show you what it looks like. Cool. But like Jake said, when we first had our property, I had a couple of investment properties. I had credibility. Jake didn't. So maybe you find a partner who does. And think about it, guys. 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. You get into that first deal and you never know the sky's the limit. So just keep an open mind about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. Better together. It's so true. And, in doing that and partnering with someone else that maybe, lacks what you may have now, you pick that strength up as you go. Mm-hmm. Right. So
love that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
let's just say that it's funny because I learned a lot from Jake. He obviously learned a lot from me, and we've expanded and we've grown. And it's like, wow, 3 years later, we really learned a lot. I mean, if I was going by myself, it'd be a different haul, be completely different. I wouldn't be able to scale up what we did. So I just want people out there to think about partnerships. Obviously, you need to have the same, I wouldn't say the same, plan. You're not going to go with a fix and flipper if you're buying multifamilies. That should be pretty obvious. You need to have the same goals.
And that sounds like why Mark, we keep interrupting his story, but why he left the builder guys. So we're turning it over to you. I'm sorry, man. I love this.
No, it's all
you
good.
You have the floor. Continue on. You're talking about the 12 unit there. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, no worries. So, I think I'd mentioned too that after I started buying rental properties, most of those were single family residences. But then in late 2013, I did buy a 12 unit apartment. And that was my first introduction into apartments. And I bought some additional single family stuff in 2014. Well, at this point now, this is where, my passive income had really, started, I had built quite a large amount of passive income, and I started to consider the possibility of leaving the corporate job. And my last day at my corporate job was actually in January of 2015. And I went ahead and exited. And at that same time, I was given a tremendous opportunity. I have a cousin that is a 30-year veteran in multifamily. And he had moved up to Colorado maybe 5 years prior. And, over the years, we'd get together every 6 months or so, and we'd have lunch, and we'd kind of compare notes about what he was doing with multifamily and what I was doing with residential. And I remember he always used to say to me, the bigger the deal, the easier it is. And I never understood that. I got what he was trying to say, but it never resonated with me, right? But, I'll come back to that, here in a minute. But he invited me. He said, well, hey, if you want, why don't you just come sit in my office and you can job shadow me, and you can see how, multifamily works. And he does the big stuff. He won't even look at anything less than 100 units. Most of his acquisitions are 200-350 units at a time.
Tell him to send me some of that. It sounds like he's got enough.
Yeah, exactly. And so I literally had this opportunity to go sit in his office and just job shadow and see how this is done. And so, and I got to be honest with you, I think that, being able to focus on something like that full time and be able to focus on my investments at this point full time, having escaped the rat race, was huge for me in making the transition into larger multifamily, because I sat there for about eight months or so and watched what he did. And then it was then in 2015 that I ended up making an offer and buying a 64 unit apartment complex. And that was really exciting because that was my first agency debt deal. And at the same time, I did raise money from two other equity partners that partnered with me on that. And so that was the first time I had ever raised money, or anything like that. And that was definitely a game changer too, because, I took that very, very seriously, you know. So in 2016, most of what I've been focused on has just been renovating. I spent the first 6 months renovating that property, and that one was in Texas, by the way. So at this point, Colorado has just taken off. It was hard to find anything here, so I went out and found this deal in Texas.
So what do you look for in a
Get
market
through
when
the
you?
smoke.
Yeah, what do you look for in a market when like why is Texas so much more appealing to you than Colorado or anywhere else?
Yeah, I look at obviously I look for existing or projected housing shortages, right?
Hmm.
And then I also look at income levels in an area because I want, obviously, I don't just look at that because I want to see income levels growing in that area. It indicates that, more jobs and stuff like that are coming to the area. But I also look at it because that is an indicator to me as to whether or not the 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 potential residents can afford where I want to take rents,
Hmm.
So I look at that kind of stuff. And then also, which is really important to me, once I've identified that market, I look for systems, property managers, lenders, brokers, and people that have systems in place that I can leverage.
Hmm.
Especially when you're investing out of state, that's critically important.
So what is the difference between a 12 unit and a 65 unit or 64 unit in your mind? What are the difference in running it, in money? What do you see differences?
Haha, the bigger the deal, the easier it is, right, guys?
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you, the truth is that you're going to spend, for the most part, you're going to spend the same amount of time renovating or operating a 12 unit as you are a 64 unit or a 150 unit. The only difference is you have larger budgets and the pot of gold is much bigger at the end of the rainbow. So uh, it was when I got the 64 unit and had that experience with the 12 unit that I understood what my cousin said.
Hmm.
The bigger the unit, the bigger the deal, the easier it is. And so yeah, there are some differences. I mean, I'd say probably one of the biggest differences is with the lender. When you get agency debt, it's non-recourse financing. They apply a lot more scrutiny. The due diligence and underwriting process is more intense. It's fairly, it's not, it's easy to navigate through, if you, you know, know what you're doing and you have a good, lender that you're working with that can help you with that.
Hmm.
Um,
You got to be okay with them peeking down your pants a couple times, right?
yeah, and that's true. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Because they allowed me to do a loan to cost deal. So I did a value add deal, and I was able to finance 80% of the acquisition and the renovation budget.
Nice.
And so, once a month, that money was sitting in an escrow account. That renovation money once a month. They'd send an inspector out to look at what I'd done, and then they'd look at my invoice. I'd submit my invoices, and they would release those funds, those escrow reserves, to pay my contractors and stuff. So yeah, they definitely are over your shoulder on stuff like that. They also require replacement reserves, meaning they force you to escrow money.
Do you remember what your per unit cost was on that per year? Not
$263
bad.
per unit. So that's what, like 16,000 approximately, give or take,
Hmm.
for a
Hmm.
64 unit a year.
So it was in pretty decent shape then.
It was in pretty
Yeah.
decent shape. There wasn't a whole lot of deferred maintenance. For a C-class property, that's
Yeah.
not bad. It's really good.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I actually am glad that the lender does that. I think
Yeah.
that's responsible. that's the right thing to do. And the nice thing is we're a little over a year in, and I've never tapped any of that, any of that cash off that 64 unit deal. It's just sitting there. If something was to happen, then there's a cash reserve there to cover it. I think that's good,
Good business.
good business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is what you did was you got a mentor who helped and guided you through the process, because this is not something you're going to do, because we're going through Fannie right now. They want a bio, they want your schedule of real estate owned, they want your net worth sheet, they want personal financial statements, they want a lot of stuff, and they want to be able to see that you can actually analyze this deal, underwrite the deal properly, and actually have a plan or a business plan in place. So my only point to you is you succeeded because you had somebody who showed you how to do this. People are so reticent sometimes to spend the money on themselves and to say, wow, $2,000 for a seminar or whatever. Spend the money because it's so worth it on the back end. Because if you go in there and ask for Fannie, you're going to look terrible. They're not even going to give you a second chance, because we're having problems. We have all this credibility, and it's hard for us to do it. So I think one of the reasons why you ended up doing it is you had your
It's
cousin
almost
help you out.
not hard. It's just annoying because they ask for like everything, right?
I know.
And it's just and then they want one more. And one more, and it's like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
So how has your investment strategy changed over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is obviously I went from residential to focusing on multifamily, and going forward, that's my focus. Again, with that in mind, that the bigger the deal, the easier it is. But in the last 5 years, I've definitely remained focused on passive income, and creating that mailbox money. But for me, my strategy is mainly just changed by gradually doing bigger and bigger deals.
You're holding out for the boardwalk and Park Place.
That's right. As you're getting bigger, have you thought, this is Jake's favorite question, about business systems? I can get the book out by Traction by Gino Wickman. He likes talking about systems. Have you thought about what type of systems you're going to implement? Because as you start scaling and getting bigger, it's different, a 12 unit as opposed to a 65 unit property.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think about systems a lot. And I create my own systems, as well as I put a lot of focus in finding partners like property managers and folks like that, that have solid, strong systems in place as well, so I can leverage theirs. I think what's important, especially when you think about partners and systems and stuff like that, is that I don't tend to look to people to be the solution. I look to systems to be a solution, and then add a layer of good people on top of that. I think that's the winning strategy has been for me. But one example, especially in residential, when I was buying up a ton of residential properties, I hit a point probably when I reached about 10 properties. That's when things started to break around the bookkeeping. I would get monthly reports from the property management company, and I was literally inputting transactions manually into QuickBooks, and it wasn't even with a great amount of detail. But the problem is that I still had other financial transactions that occurred outside the management company, but I'd say they probably accounted for 90% of it. So what I did is I hired a guy that was that's a CPA, as well as he's got some programming skills, and I had him write me some code that would basically take data from the management company's software, and essentially it would map all of their GL accounts to my GL accounts and just suck it up into QuickBooks. And it literally just in a matter of does it in like matter of seconds. And so as I continued to buy more properties and scale up, that's been a very successful tool.
That is huge
for my business. Yeah,
that's huge. What is your best real estate advice tip for the listeners?
Never stop learning. Learning leads to action, and action leads to success. I kind of hinted at this earlier. My cousin, even when he invited me to come shadow, when I made the transition to multifamily. Now this is how it was for me, okay? But I don't think I could have made the transition as quickly or immediately bought a 64 unit apartment complex if I had not focused on it 100% of the time. I needed to leave the rat race. I was fortunate that I had enough passive income to leave the rat race, and in doing so, looking back, if I had not taken that step, then I don't think I would have ever broken into multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth be told, I had the passive income to leave, but I've thought about going another 2 years, but I didn't. And I made I left the rat race, and I focused on it 100% of the time. I continued to learn, I took action,
Mm-hmm.
and that learning and action is what led to success.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So we're talking about success here. What is a daily habit or weekly habit that you do that makes you successful, that's enabled you to get to this point?
A daily habit, for me, it's about networking, and it's about, keeping in contact with people and constantly networking, reaching out to people on a daily basis. I think that's important because, especially in my experience, it's been my connections with people that have always led from one thing to another. It was actually that general contractor that I met that introduced me to my lender, who I ended up doing a ton of business with back between 2010 and 2014. That lender introduced me to a property manager here in Denver. And also introduced me to a power broker. That helped me find tons of deals in Denver. That were cash flow positive and had excellent returns. I really think that, one of my best habits has been just, networking and doing that on a daily basis, talking to people, going to coffee, going to lunch, just staying connected with people.
Cool. What's your most favorite business book? I know you mentioned Rich Dad before. What else has helped you along your way?
There's a book out that I just recently read. I forget his last name, Joe. But he just wrote a book about the best real estate investing advice ever. And I recently read that. Joe Fairless, yeah. Boy, I feel so bad I forgot his last name. But I just recently read that one, and I really enjoyed it. And what I liked about it is that it's not just Joe's success that he talks about in that book. He talks about the collective knowledge of a whole bunch of other people. It's like a book just full of case studies of how other people have been successful in real estate. And the truth is, there's tons of ways to make money in this business. Multifamily
really
is one of them.
Crazy.
Yeah,
we always say everybody eats, right?
I know, and the thing is, though, I think multifamily is the best. You guys probably feel the same way, but there is a lot of different ways to make money in this business, and that's what I like about that book is it talks about a lot of different people and how they were successful, and it just breaks it down into short little case studies. There's so many nuggets of knowledge in that book. It's a good one.
We were talking about your 64 unit. Has that been your best deal, or what's been your best deal and why?
Yeah, I think the 64 unit, that was the first deal I got agency debt on. And this time of year too has been a really exciting time because I acquired that property in December of 2015. So we just passed the 1-year anniversary recently of that acquisition. And I mentioned I had 2 equity partners involved. And I'm really happy to say that by the end of that first year, I did everything I said I would do, plus some. I actually paid out more in distributions than I said I would in the pro forma. And I left the property really well capitalized. I didn't have to strip it of all of its cash or anywhere near that to accomplish that. So, it was a milestone property for sure. And it was also, I'm really glad I was able to do what I said I would do.
So what's next, though? I mean, what have you done for me lately? There's got to be another deal coming down the funnel here. What do we got?
Well, I'm skiing a lot.
Oh, come on, man! Don't get complacent.
Ski season, here in Colorado. But no, going into 2017, I'm definitely focused on finding my next deal. And I want to continue to go bigger. Do larger and larger deals. The great thing is I'm not desperate for a deal. So I know what my acquisition criteria is. I'll stick to it. Given where we're at in the cycle right now, it is pretty competitive out there. It's harder to find, deals, but they do exist. They are out there, and more importantly, you talked about systems and stuff like that. I have my set of systems. You have your set of systems, right? We each look for deals that align well, with our systems where we know we can unlock value. And so there are deals out there to be found. They're a little harder to find, but I will find one here in early 2017.
What about teaming up with the Cuz?
With the Cuz? Yeah, we talk about that a lot. It's just a matter of working out the details. Make it mutually beneficial, right?
That's right.
So
that's right.
Absolutely.
So I've been taking some notes, and one of the things I like earlier, you said you talking about the multifamily building blocks specifically for financing, and that your net worth equal to or greater than the loan amount is preferred. You talked about liquidity, cash to make it 12 months, 12 months of mortgage payments, experience, having that proven track record, using a credibility book. That was really, really good stuff. And I like you said this earlier, partnering equal. When you partner, basically you're picking up the strengths that you lack. So you find someone with complementary skill sets, you partner with them, and then you just doubled, right? You picked up something that you didn't have, so now you're a stronger force going forward. I think I'm thinking like cartoons right now or something like, I don't know, man, it's crazy. So and then of course the bigger the deal, the easier it is. I love that. Totally on board. I believe that, and it's the bigger you get, the more people you can hire, the more work they can get done, the more things get done, and it just moves forward aggressively. So that's really cool. And you're looking for partners who have systems in place. And so it kind of circles back around to what you said. You may lack in those systems and that business structure, so you're finding out folks that do, and you're combining and joining forces with them. So
yeah. We probably should have just started the podcast like that, because you said that so much better than me. So
no, man, I was trying to get it down, as close as I could. So.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I've definitely learned a lot of things along the way, and I continue to learn a lot. It's a journey. And for me, it's been a journey of just gradually doing bigger and bigger deals. But hey, I'll tell you what, guys, if for your listeners, I'd be happy to, as a way of saying thank you for listening to me, rant here for a while. I'd love to offer a free gift to everyone. I've written a guide. Well, it's better than a box of chocolates. This one's going to make you rich.
Less calories, bro. That's right.
Don't worry, I'm not selling anything. Not selling anything
man, you
at
can
all.
sell. Listen, we like selling, okay? Selling's important, man. Lifeblood, baby. What you got?
Well, I guess that means I should be selling something, but I'm not in this particular instance. But I've written a guide. It's called 10 Not So Obvious Ways to Boost Your Multifamily Property NOI. And obviously, one of the things we all love about multifamily investing is this concept of forced appreciation. If you increase income and/or decrease expenses, and then you are going to increase the value of your property. And so there's some things I've learned along the way, the not so obvious ways to do that I'd love to make available to the listeners. It'll be on my website at www.luxmana.com/Jake and Gino.
How do you spell it?
Luxmana is spelled LUXMANA.com.
We're going to have
/
in the show notes.
Gino.
Cool.
We're going to have it in the show notes also. So, yeah, definitely. I think the next book you got to write is How to Get Out of the Rat Race. My framework on how I got out of the rat race. Because I think people see you, they look at you, you can be a total role model to guys who are just struggling in their jobs, who are stuck, who have that limiting belief. Jake and I always talk about limiting beliefs, and we've got tons of them. And, bigger deal is easier. Can't be, right? But that's just a limiting belief. And I think you really need to focus on that and just show people that is true. So
hey, I appreciate that. And when I set out to do that, I'm going to be reaching out to you for some advice on how to become a bestseller. So
reach out to
for
him.
sure. All right. Very
All right,
good.
Mark,
Hey,
thanks for
appreciate
having me on the
it.
show.
And everyone have a good rest of the day. We'll see you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.